Hello YouTube, this is going to be a video about the Thunderf00t latest drama.
So this is an open letter to William Lane Craig.
Thunderf00t has been recently DMCA. Now, in comparison with many other people, including myself, who have been DMCA in the past, Thunderf00t has decided to make an entire show and take all the possible benefits from this story.
Dear Dr. William Lane Craig, I write to you with respect to an abuse of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act as the DMCA perpetrated in your name.
The interesting irony of this story is that Thunderf00t is basically crying to William Kane, a man who Thunderf00t spent a lot of time humiliating.
I run a YouTube channel called Thunderf00t, which is critical of irrational positions, and recently I posted a video entitled
So what happened? Thunderf00t has made an entire video of the humiliation of William Kane from a material taken down from Drcraigvideos YouTube channel without citing his source and without transforming the Drcraigvideos material too much.
Much to my surprise, the video, which clearly falls under fair use, was taken down by a DMCA notification by Drcraigvideos on YouTube.
In just a few seconds, we are going to analyze if the person behind the Drcraigvideos channel was in his legal right to file the DMCA. What I find extremely disturbing about this Thunderf00t video is that Thunderf00t himself is basically threatening Dr. William Craig that if he will not come in the help of Thunderf00t channel, he's going to send his 100 and so subscribers to spam Dr. Craig's site.
As of you receiving this public letter, I will have sent it out to 150 or so thousand subscribers on my YouTube channel, with the suggestion that if they find the actions of Dr. Craig's videos abuse of the DMCA unacceptable, that they write to you and voice their concerns on reasonablefaith.org. I and they look forward to your response. Best wishes, Thunderf00t, aka Dr. Phil.
My legal advice as a political science graduate to William Kane is to pay no attention to this angry YouTube atheist who is just seeking attention, and let every part from this case resolve their own legal problems. Now, there are several problems with using other people's materials, problems such as the amount of material used, the transformative nature, and citation.
So what is fair use? If you think about copyright as a series of restrictions, fair use is a set of exceptions. It protects your right to use copyrighted material in certain ways. And it's not a trivial little technicality, it's a fundamental part of the copyright bargain. We don't give copyright owners unlimited control over their content. We preserve a whole variety of uses and things that people get to do with copyrighted content without permission. And fair use is really, above all else, a set of factors and considerations that help us figure out which things we carve out of the copyright monopoly and which things we let people do without permission. Okay, let's go through the basics. As I said, fair use is flexible, and that's because it really turns on four factors that get considered together. The first question fair use asks is, what are you doing with the copyrighted content? What is the nature of the use you're making? And above all, the most important consideration in that first factor is whether you're doing something transformative. What does transformative mean? It really means, are you saying something new? Are you saying something different than the author of the original work you're borrowing from was trying to say? The second factor examines the nature of the material you're using. If you're using fictional material or highly creative material, then all things being equal, you're going to have a little less room under the fair use analysis. If you're using something that is less creative, factual, or non-fictional, all things being the same, you're going to have a little more room to use it under the fair use analysis. The third factor in the fair use analysis looks at the amount you use from the original. It's not strictly the number of seconds or on a percentage basis. The real question is whether the amount you used is reasonable in relation to the purpose for which you used it. So the third factor is really going to vary based on the first. There are some purposes where you may need a fairly large amount of material from the original. Maybe there are other purposes where you need less. So the third factor asks, is the amount you borrowed reasonable in relation to the purpose for which you borrowed it? The fourth fair use factor examines the impact of your use on the market for the original. First question is, will your use substitute for the original? Will it reduce the sales, reduce the market for original copies of the copyrighted work? Or, for that matter, even if it's not a substitute, is it going to occupy markets that the copyright owner is entitled to exploit? Things like markets for sequels or other derivative works that we reserve to the copyright owner. So to answer any fair use question, you have to look at all four of these factors and figure out how they balance out and weigh out together. There's not a single one that controls. Transformation is the most important, but they all have to be weighed together to get to an answer. Now there's one consideration I want to emphasize separate and apart from the fair use analysis, and that is the question of whether you'll be pursued, or for that matter, sued. Keep in mind that it doesn't necessarily matter whether your use is protected or not. Somebody can still sue you. In fact, you may have an unquestionably protected use, somebody might sue you anyway. Or for that matter, you might have a clearly unprotected use and maybe no one will choose to pursue it. So you always have to remember that the question of whether fair use protects something or not is separate and different from the question of whether somebody might sue you for it and force you to prove up your right to do what you've done.
The law doesn't require that you give credit when you are using another person's work, but it is often advised to give credit where you can.
Now, even if giving citation is not something required by the law, it's something that you should usually do in order to be honest with yourself and to do not be accused of plagiarism.
The following article is from Kids Health. What is plagiarism? Chris just found some good stuff on the web for his science report about sharks. He highlights a paragraph that explains that most sharks grow to be only 3 to 4 feet long and can't hurt people. Chris copies it and pastes it into his report. He quickly changes the font so it matches the rest of the report and continues his research. Uh-oh. Chris just made a big mistake. Do you know what he did? He committed plagiarism, say, plagiarism. Plagiarism is when you use someone else's words or ideas and pass them off as your own. It's not allowed in school, college, or beyond, so it's a good idea to learn the proper way to use resources, such as websites, books, and magazines. Plagiarism is a form of cheating, but it's a little complicated, so a kid might do it without understanding that it's wrong. Chris should have given the author and the website credit for the information. Why? Because Chris didn't know this information before he came to the website.
So was the person behind the Drcraigvideos channel entitled to make the DMCA? Yes, he was, if he is the copyright owner or if he had permission from the part of the copyright owner. There is an old saying who states to repeat a lie 1,000 times will not make it true. Still, Thunderf00t in his video is repeating again and again that someone is acting on YouTube in the name of
Dr. William Lane Craig. Dear Dr. William Lane Craig, I write to you with respect to an abuse of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, that's the DMCA, perpetrated in your name. A man on YouTube is acting in this fashion in your name. Drcraigvideos claims to host videos on YouTube on behalf of William Lane Craig, and that the man purporting to act on your behalf is nothing to do with you, the presumed copyright owners.
Also, Thunderf00t is suggesting that William K. must be the only owner of the Reasonable Fate videos.
YouTube does have rules that preclude people from acting in someone else's name like that.
Apparently, Thunderf00t is suffering from a little attention disorder problem, because his own video refutes his own claims.
Dear Dr. William Lane Craig, I write to you with respect to an abuse of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, as the DMCA, perpetrated in your name. It was taken down by a DMCA notification by John Leonard, that's Drcraigvideos, from YouTube. A man on YouTube is acting in this fashion in your name. John Leonard, that's Drcraigvideos, from YouTube.
Also, Thunderf00t is trying an entire lawyer scheme, usually used by lawyers from countries as England. By the way, do we know any lawyer from England?
Further, I have since received communications from a reliable source stating this about Dr. Craig's videos.
According to this scheme, you must depict your opponent as some kind of psychopath, a crazy person who basically does not even have to be listened.
Hey, T-Foot, I just wanted to give you a heads up about this Dr. Craig videos guy. In the past, he has filed DMCAs against me, Theo Warner and Andromeda's Wake. He never fought any counter notice, and the idea, I think, is simply to get personal information in order to harass us. His name is not actually John Leonard, as far as I can tell. Years ago, he used to go by the name of and he had harassed the Rational Response Squad. He now creates websites like this.
And of course you have to discredit your adversary by building an entire history of mental instability.
And an even worse one he made about Theo Warner, where he calls him a sex offender and a paedophile.
And all persons, and I mean to the last one, we must be convinced that the man in discussion does not even have to be listened, because he's too crazy to really have something to say anyway.
The guy is completely nuts and has a lot of spare time on his hands. A dangerous combination, so be careful. And judging from the website and a little googling, the guy is crazy and apparently has a history of fishing for personal details using the DMCA in Dr. Craig's name, with the intent of personal harassment. A nasty piece of work.
And of course we all have seen this with Venofan X, with Dalafilm, and even with a group of atheists who was critical of Thunderf00t. Apparently all the adversaries that Thunderf00t ever have were psychopaths and crazy and people who you do not even have to listen because Thunderf00t knows what he is saying. Now about this Thunderf00t and his attention disorder problem. I'm going to present some statements made by this Thunderf00t that contradict other statements made by the same Thunderf00t.
And with the consent of reasonable faith. Even though this account seems to be directly contradicted by William Lane Craig himself.
I have never put a video on YouTube, but other people pirate them and put them up. And I recently saw a Google stat that said that at these Dr. Craig video sites, they have had over 4 million views. I have never put a video on YouTube, but other people pirate them and put them up. And I recently saw a Google stat that said that at these Dr. Craig video sites,
you must be stupid not to observe that there is no necessary logical contradiction between those two statements. Just as an example, I had a lot of teachers who they do not even know how to open a computer, but they had a lot of material published on the web. Now Dr. Craig probably has an entire staff down at the Reasonable Fate that deals with his videos and with the selling of his books. So Thunderf00t makes and upload his own videos, and after his judgment everyone must do the same. This looks like a variation of a David Hume is an odd problem. Therefore, if Thunderf00t makes his own videos and uploads them to YouTube, then everyone must make his own videos and upload them on YouTube, even President Obama.
I have never put a video on YouTube.
And with the consent of reasonable faith.
So Thunderf00t goes again and again in this video trying to prove a contradiction between the statement of Dr. Craig that he never uploaded a video to YouTube and the declaration made by the Dr. Craig video YouTube channel that he hosts videos in behalf of ReasonableFaith.com.
And with the consent of reasonable faith.
I have never put a video on YouTube.
I do not even know if I am shocked or amused that a man as Thunderf00t cannot see that there is no necessary contradiction between those two statements.
I have never put a video on YouTube.
And with the consent of reasonable faith.
Now just a few weeks ago, Thunderf00t has made a video that had almost 100,000 views so far, where he presents his real name and the place where he lives.
Further, you barely have to scratch the surface to find out that Drcraigvideos is a zealously draconian censor. Moreover, he seems intent on dropping my real name and my YouTube account as much as possible, along with some bullshit.
Now we have heard everything that Thunderf00t have to say. Now let's hear the other side.
Craig's Reasonable Faith website has a link to my channel. And I've said in public comments, and saying right now, that Craig and RF have given me permission to use his videos. I've said this many times already. Thunderf00t still has video footage of mine he's using to bank off of, since he got fired from Cornell University. I've asked him a trillion times that, if he's going to use my videos to reference it, he refuses to give links to my channel. He refuses to give links to Craig's website, and when he uses my videos he deliberately and literally blocks out links to my channel and Craig's website. And I'm accused of censorship? He's still using copyright material in his videos that he's making money off of.
So apparently Thunderf00t is fighting with the copyright owner, and the copyright owner has the right to ask you to prove him if you used his material for fair use or not. So far, Thunderf00t has got in a lot of accusation, but has never tried to prove that he used the Craig material for fair use. Thunderf00t has deliberately lied to his audience by hiding the real reason why this conflict even started, and that reason is because Thunderf00t has not referenced his videos. And we are not talking about one video, we are talking about several videos where Thunderf00t is using Craig material without citing his source.
I run a YouTube channel called Thunderf00t, which is critical of irrational positions.
So what is the goal of Thunderf00t? Because DMCAs are fired every day on YouTube, and it's not like this guy is after the Thunderf00t channel.
Further, you may wish to bring it to YouTube's attention that this man has now evidently and repeatedly and knowingly abused the DMCA by filing multiple failed notices. In itself, an offence which YouTube states should result in the permanent removal of this account, and that Drcraigvideos' actions constitute an abuse of the DMCA, and that he should no longer be allowed to continue to operate a YouTube channel in your name.
So basically Thunderf00t, the big advocate for free speech, wants to remove 850 videos from YouTube. When I was just preparing to render this video, it was brought to my attention that Thunderf00t has made a new video on this subject, and what an interesting video indeed. In this video, Thunderf00t is basically recognizing that he has been a troll and that he has harassed the web of knowledge and Dr. Craig. Now if indeed Thunderf00t and the web of knowledge are in some sort of juridical conflict, this behavior from Thunderf00t part is completely irrational.
Hello, thank you for calling Reasonable Faith. Please leave your name, number, and a detailed message. Thank you and goodbye.
At the tone, please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Dear Dr. Craig, I call you concerning the man running the Dr. Craig Videos channel on YouTube, and the 5 emails, 1 now, 2 voicemails, and numerous other communications I've had through the forum, none of which have received a reply.
Thunderf00t has never even tried to make a deal or open a discussion with the Dr. Craig video channel. What would be the first rational action of a rational man? But instead, Thunderf00t is now sending offensive letters to Dr. William Craig and is threatening the web of knowledge to spam their channel.
And a citation record which, at least according to the web of knowledge, eclipses yours by a factor of 5. It was a golden opportunity for you to display your true colours. Maybe something about not bearing false witness, or maybe something with those with the hots for the New Testament, like every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. But there's a reason why the internet is merely where religions come to die. Never, Dr. Craig, use the words academic integrity again. Now that 2 citations, Craig has shown his true colours and has turned his nose up at sorting this out in a civilized fashion.
Now it seems that Thunderf00t is unable to stop embarrassing himself. Basically this is like accusing Richard Dawson of what the people from the Richard Dawson site are doing. Now this is like I would go against Richard Dawson because the people from the Richard Dawson forum, they never allowed me to publish an article, and they never did let me. Thunderf00t apparently is not aware that the Richard Dawson Foundation is involved now and then in different legal problems and scandals, but this does not mean that people are going after Richard Dawson's head.
Himself claiming to be in academia. Now, I wrote him a personal message explaining that if Dr. Craig Videos claims to be legally acting on William Lane Craig's behalf, as was stated on Reasonable Faith's forums, then he was committing the criminal act of perjury in William Lane Craig's name. And within about an hour or so, with no explanation, I was blocked from the forum, and the entire discussion on Thunderf00t denunciated by William Lane Craig was expunged from history. All 4 pages of it.
Now about the Thunderf00t accusations about the Reasonable Faith forum. The Reasonable Faith forum is a forum where people come to discuss matters of faith and books published by William Craig. So let's just take into consideration what will happen if I would go to the Richard Dawson site and start to present my conspiracy theories involving Richard Dawson.